Welcome to Red and Yellow, the podcast about all things to do with refereeing at grassroots level, looking at the laws of football, speaking to guests, and trying to help you become a better referee, with Adam Humphreys and me, Ed Connell.
Hello, loyal listeners. It's Adam here, and I just wanted to get in early on this episode of Red or Yellow to remind you to please send in your questions about refereeing or anything you feel like you might need help with in terms of your game. That's why we are here, to help you improve to be a better referee. We really enjoy getting questions from our listeners as voice notes via email or DM or on social media. Being able to help you is why we created this podcast, and to offer our insights and to be able to help you by drawing on our experience. Added to that, if you are a very fit listener, then please don't forget to follow us on all the social medias. It's at Red or Yellow Pod. As well as remember to like and subscribe in your podcast feed. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get on with the show. Well, hello, Edward. How are you? How was Colombia?
It was amazing, thank you very much. And I'm a little bit jet lagged. My sleep patterns are still a bit messed up. So I didn't sleep very well last night. I'm pretty shattered. And I'm going to go straight to bed as soon as we finish recording this, because it's now 10 p.m. UK time. And I need my sleep. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not jet lagged, but I'm good. Thank you, actually. Yeah, not too bad at all. It's been a busy week. It's been I'm buying a house, so that's always fun and stressful. But yeah, other than that, life's pretty good. Not too bad at all. Did you do any football in Colombia?
No, didn't go and see any football whilst I was away. I watched a bit on TV, but no, sadly, no live action stuff. No time for that. So yeah, no, I had a little bit of a break from football whilst I was away.
Just quickly,
which is nice.
Just quickly, how are Chelsea getting on?
They're doing really well. We've not seen the table. We're just a few points off the top and a few points off the bottom.
Right, like 15 points off the top and 15 points off the bottom.
I think we're actually closer to the bottom now than we are the top. But there we go. Such is life. Don't get me on the topic of Chelsea and Graham Potter. It's not a good subject for me at the moment. I've resigned myself to the fact it's just going to be one of those seasons.
It is.
And praying that we can turn it around against Dortmund on Tuesday night, which I'm going to go to. So I hope that we can turn around the 1-0 lead they've got over us from the game at took place in Dortmund. But I'm not optimistic because we can't score any goals. So there we go. Let's move on to a different topic. You've been very bravely, I suppose it will feature as part of our sort of news section, but you've been very bravely posting clips on our social media account of instance from a game. I don't know if it's the same game that the two clips came from or not. But,
I think I shared a clip with you privately.
Oh, I see.
Now everyone's going to be like, Adam, what's that clip? I mean, it's not that private.
It's not for public consumption, that clip.
Well, it is.
Sorry,
it's on YouTube, so it's fine. So everyone can watch it. And then I shared an offside one because I thought, like, we had the moment in the game, right? So it's on Red or Yellow Pod on our Instagram,
on the Instagram account
and Facebook. Yeah. And I knew we was coming up to offside, so we had this situation. Was it deliberately played? Was it not by the defender? The ball then goes in the net. And I thought it'd create a good discussion. It'd be a good reference point for us because those considerations are quite new and they're always worth touching base on.
When you say we had the offside law coming up, Adam, that was like 2 or 3 episodes ago. You did appreciate that, didn't you? I know you've got a thorough grip.
We've already done offside.
Well, if there any more evidence needed about
shit.
Adam's woeful lack of preparation and lack of knowledge about the laws, it's just been demonstrated. Thank God.
In my head, have we seriously covered offside?
Thank God you've got me to carry this podcast. Otherwise, it'd be a complete and utter shambles.
Right.
Yes, we've covered that law.
Then in news, we'll talk about that decision then. I thought it was this week, the offside law. Why did I think that? I'm sorry, everybody.
Because you're not very well prepared. That would probably be one example.
So what are we doing today? Fouls
It's
and misconduct.
Law 12, Adam, which is indeed fouls misconduct, which is a pretty epic section of the laws. And I'm not entirely sure we're going to get through all of it this week. It might be we have to break it down into two. We'll see how we get on, but I think there's a lot to cover. It's a pretty important aspect of the laws, and I suspect if we deal with some of our post bag and some of the news as well, we won't get through it all, but we shall see. But
Cool.
anyway, there we go.
Okay, then should we start with news then properly? Now that I know what we're recording today.
Yeah, I know. I'm rapidly sending you messages of WhatsApp reminding you of what's actually going on. News. Which bit of news would you like to deal with first of all?
Should we start with the touch base on the offside law that we covered 2 weeks ago, and the clips from my game? That would work well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I guess people will need to go look at this clip, but as you said, it's on all our social media feeds. So you go over and have a look. I thought it was very brave you posting some footage from an actual game of yours. But
can I just say, I've said quite openly that I don't mind being a bit of an open book with things. I said that, and then there was like 3 penalty decisions that happened in the same game that I'm not willing to share.
It's a shame you haven't shared the publicly the one that you sent me, because I think it's a really good, interesting topic of conversation, which was a potential penalty shout that you didn't give. And
there's a lot in that game. But yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's one of those where everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. And that's probably why I'm not willing to share it, or I haven't shared it yet, because I think I just don't want to get caught up in, a million people saying yes and a million people saying no. But that's just life. And also, part of me also feels like I need to respect the clubs and the players involved as well, to a degree. And I don't want like something kind of, because I obviously disagreed with that decision. Well, I didn't give the penalty, and everyone wanted the penalty. And I don't want people kind of slamming the players for no reason just because I want to talk about my decision. So there's a bit of that going on as well, which is probably why I pulled away a little bit, because obviously you get quite close to the clubs that you referee and stuff, especially, I mean, that club specifically, Southwest Queensland Thunder. I've refereed them, I think, 7 times on the trot now. So, you get to know them all and everything. And I just don't want to embroil everybody in a bit of controversy.
Aren't these games already sort of in the public domain anyway? Because I know that some of your games go on YouTube and are broadcast on a TV channel over there, aren't they? So it's not as though you're disclosing sort of footage that no one else has opportunity to watch, but it's all out there in the public domain.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And obviously, I'll be highlighting player behaviour. So I
also think I think in some respects it's quite, not brave's not the word, but I respect the fact you're prepared to sort of put the footage up there for it to be the topic of debate. But I think it's important because I think firstly it shows that not everything's clear cut. It's there are lots of borderline decisions. It's quite interesting to get a bit of debate about it. And secondly, I don't think we should be afraid to review matches and to assess ourselves and work out whether we think we've got it right, and we don't always get it right. So but so I don't know. Should we talk about the one that you did post on social media?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the offside one, and then next week, maybe if I come to the conclusion I'm willing to share the penalty decision, then we can talk about that, because that will relate back to what we did this week in terms of fouls.
Good idea.
So the offside decision. So first of all, I just want to say I did get the assistant who gave the decision. I did get his permission to share it, because I thought that was important first, because it was really his decision, even though the buck stops with me as the referee. So what happened is play kind of breaks into the penalty area. You've got kind of like a number 10 or an attacking midfielder. He kind of plays a through ball through the back 4 to a player who was originally in the offside position when the ball was played. But as the ball has been passed, the defenders kind of tried to make a play on the ball, I suppose is the best way to say it. Isn't successful in making a play on the ball, but does make contact with the ball. It then slides through to the centre forward who puts the ball in the back of the net. And and so my assistant concluded it was offside. I completely agreed with him, despite the fact the defender didn't deliberately play it. Sorry, despite the fact the defender played the ball, and we gave offside as the decision. Now, it's one of those, like, the more you look at it, the more you fall on 2 sides of the tracks, right? Like, you can look at it and go, convince yourself it's not offside, and you can look at it and convince yourself you are offside. All I said to the assistant in the moment like I always say to my assistants before the game that offside is theirs, basically, unless they're on the floor or they've dropped the flag. That's it basically, or I think they're completely and utterly wrong. And in this case, it wasn't my judgment to give, because the first thing I needed to know was the player in an offside position to begin with. I was pretty sure he was, and my assistant said yes, he was offside. And then I said, and do you think he's deliberately played the ball? And he went, no, I don't think he has. I was like, why not? And what I did, the way I dealt with it with him, luckily we had comms, we could get this communication done quite efficiently. What happened? What did I say to him? I said, so the ball's in the net. So that gave us a bit of extra time to make the decision to begin with, which was good. But equal to that, you're like, you don't want them off celebrating. You want to make sure you get in quick enough so they understand the situation. And I just said to him, why has he not deliberately played the ball? And he said, I just don't think he gave me like a list of reasons. He's like, he didn't get control, etc., etc. I went, great, that's enough. And for me, in his head, he realized the player had played the ball, and he made a conscious decision as to why he didn't deliberately play the ball. And that's all I needed to hear. And then once we'd everything had calmed down and we'd moved on to like the goal kick, the kickoff, I just said to him, can you just give me more information on your view on it? And he was like, look, he's just kind of jumped at it, like just instinctively. I was like, okay, great, that's fine. And then we move on. And when you watch it, that is kind of what he does. Someone on Instagram, actually, one of our loyal listeners who I think is in Scandinavia, he put it really well to me on the feed under the post. He said, the way it looks to me is similar to a goalkeeper trying to make a save for a ball, like saving the ball, and then the player puts it in the net off of the goalkeeper, but he was in an offside position when the shot came in. It's kind of like, it's that kind of instinctive movement towards the ball that means it's not deliberate. He's kind of just reacted when the ball slipped through. And when you look at the new considerations for offside and for deliberate play of offside, there's loads you have to take into consideration, whether the ball is in the air or on the floor. This one, it's on the floor, so it makes it easier to play. So that could lean it towards being deliberately played. Is the ball coming at pace? It was a pretty fast pass, and the defender was pretty close to the pass to begin with, so he didn't have a huge amount of time to make a conscious decision on what to do. Was there any chance of the player gaining possession of the ball? I don't think there was, with the pace that the pass went in. And what was the other one? I can't remember, but yeah, I've put them all in the Instagram post, and I think we just ticked off enough of those to state that actually no, he didn't deliberately play the ball, hence we gave offside.
And I mean, the thing is, it's not clear cut. The whole point is that the law sets out the sort of factors we take into account. So it's a subjective decision, and it sounds as though you sort of went through the process, both in your own mind and in the assistant mind, and that's all you can really do. I mean, those sort of decisions are always, I think, going to be controversial, not least because, as I said before, that's an aspect of the law which I don't think people particularly understand.
Which is helpful. But I would say all the players responded really well to it. No one really questioned it. Obviously, in the moment, I disappointed they didn't get the goal, but they understood, and I just went, he's not deliberately played it, and they went, okay, fine. The two that I've forgotten that actually in this clip makes it. I've just looked them up. Makes it not deliberate was the player didn't have time to coordinate their body movement. So he was just moving instinctively, and the other one was I don't think the player had a clear view of it, because I think I need to watch it again, but I think he was facing the other way and he's just kind of turned and then lunged at the ball. But the one that really, he didn't have time to coordinate for me, and the ball was moving quickly. So I think that's fine. And with that, no one says how many of those you have to tick off. And you watch it in full time, it's almost like the player falls over because the ball's near him as he's kind of turning without him actually, doing it. And even if he does stop there, he's not gaining possession in a way that's going to advance his team because he's on the floor. So then, so that's why we gave offside. But it is an instinct. It is an instinct. Like, in the moment, we didn't have time to go through all these things, discuss it and everything else. We just have to instinctively go, was it not? Okay, great. Yep, that's our decision. Let's go. And then in hindsight, we can then understand our gut instinct on it.
And that's the thing. I mean, you've got to make these decisions pretty quickly, as you say, because the game is got to continue. You've got to make a decision there and then. But it's interesting. I mean, I've been watching as you've been talking, sort of rewatching the clip again, and you could. I mean, I could certainly make a case for it being an onside and a goal. I mean, there is an argument when you look at it that the defender moves his leg. He changes his position. He's plainly sees the ball coming towards him, so he's reacting to the ball coming towards him. And I think you could certainly make a case for saying it's arguable that he's deliberately attempting to play the ball. But it just shows how difficult the job of referee is, because we're sitting here watching it over and over again, discussing it, and it's not easy. And you've got to make these decisions pretty quickly. You can't sort of take 5 minutes out of the game to chew the cud over the law and look at the law again. You've got to process all this criteria on the spot and make a decision.
And I think also, like, the more you look at it, the more, as I said previously, the more you can convince yourself either way. I think the video doesn't give due care and attention to the positioning and the speed at which that ball is moving, because you're so long away, you can't get a sense of that. But when we're both there, like, obviously my assistant's watching the ball fly past him kind of sideways on, I'm watching the ball move quickly through the back four, and you get a better sense for the way the player has reacted as opposed to made a conscious decision. But the video doesn't give you that context. You only get that context from being right in the middle of the pitch.
And you were making this decision with the benefit of an assistant, having his input on it. Whereas, a lot of grassroots referees are having to make those decisions based only on what they see. It makes it even more difficult.
And if I didn't have an assistant who I trusted completely with that decision, I would have still given offside, because the player was definitely in a very obvious offside position when the ball was first played. And I don't think there's enough. And I think like that's always the safer decision there. Like, I could say he was offside when the ball was played, and everyone at grassroots level would back off of that and go, fine. No one would then go, but he's played it deliberately, and then get into a conversation about deliberate.
Exactly.
And if anyone did want to draw me into a conversation about deliberate at grassroots level, I'd just go, well, can you please tell me what the considerations are for deliberate play? And they'd be like, what? It's whether he's played the ball deliberately. I'd be like, no, it's all of these. I'd list them all, and I'd just bamboozle them to the point that they can't keep track of what I'm saying. And then I'd just be like, great, let's move on.
And this is a classic case of giving the offside decision is not going to be hugely controversial, because you're giving what the players expect. There's a goal scored from a player who is immediately looks as though he's in an offside position. Expectation people don't have is the referee's going to give offside. Apart from maybe the particularly astute ones who know the laws of football properly might want to be able to argue it, but they're few and far between.
Well, normally referees anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. But no, I was glad you posted that. I thought it was really, really good. I mean, you have the benefit, obviously, of having these clips from your games because they're being recorded, and I think they make really good talking points. So if the opportunity presents itself again to post some clips and you're happy to sort of and open to people sort of debating and discussing your decision-making process, I think that'd be really, really helpful. So that's one piece of news.
It doesn't bother me, as long as it doesn't bother Football Queensland.
The main piece of news I wanted to talk about, which is came out probably about a couple of weeks ago, but we came out since our last podcast was recorded.
Someone decided to go to Colombia.
Yeah, someone decided to take a holiday. Is the trial that's now, I think it's now begun actually in England, of body cams on referees. So the story of abuse of referees has continued to be in the news this year. We've talked about it on a few occasions. It's a topic which keeps on recurring. And it seems that the response to that for the FA has been to ask IFAB if they could trial body cams of referees. And I went away and looked at some of the videos. It's a really interesting bit of kit. I don't know if you've seen the footage, Adam, but the camera is probably about the size of my
iWatch.
Big Apple Watch.
Is that the titanium one, is it?
It's the Ultra.
The Ultra, of course, darling.
And I can't work out because on some of the clips it looks as though referees got it clipped to their chest.
Yeah.
And on other clips they've got them sort of wearing body vests that go over the arms and sort of sits in the centre. And it's being trialled for it's the first time it's been used in the world. It's being trialled, I think, for a period of about 18 months, is my understanding. It's being trialled in 4 FA areas of the UK. I think Merseyside is one. I think there's some down south as well. And they reckon there's going to be about 100 referees participating in this trial. And they're hoping, and the expectation is that it's going to have a material impact upon player behaviour because they realise it's going to be evidenced. And I think the hope is that we'll see an improvement. I don't know what your I mean, I've got lots of thoughts about this, but I mean, what are your immediate thoughts about it?
I think they're also like, it doesn't record the whole game, does it? You're only allowed to turn it on in certain moments, I think.
Well, I don't know, because I was trying desperately to sort of look online to get more information about it, because one of the things that's crossed my mind is that how's it being recorded? And being the cynic in me, I mean, I think it's a really great idea. Ultimately, it's sad that we need to have it, but I think it's a really great idea. And if it works, it's going to keep more referees in the game. It's going to make football better. But I was intrigued to know about what the recording is, because if it's being recorded to the cloud, right, which I don't think it will be, but let's just say it's being recorded to the cloud.
I reckon it'd be on an SD card.
Yeah, well, that's my big concern, right? Because if somebody punches the referee and it's on the body cam, right? I know what I'd do if I punched the referee. I'd be grabbing the body cam and I'd be smashing it under my foot or disappearing off with it.
Right.
Because, and that's what worries me a little bit, is it going to actually stop? Yeah, is it actually going to stop the people who are intent on violence anyway, that are sort of people that can't control themselves? Is it just not going to cause them to actually say, right, I'm going to commit my offence and then I'm going to steal the evidence from it?
I'd never thought about that. I think, I mean, I suppose even if the player does steal the evidence, at least then you can be like, well, I haven't got the body cam anymore because it was stolen off me. And therefore that's going to lend more credence to the referee saying that he was clearly physically abused, because he's not going to.
Yeah, but it does remove that independent account that the body-worn camera footage provides. And then without that, it simply becomes, well, you'd hope more than one person's word against another, but that might be the situation.
But it's like anything, isn't it? Right. So really, it's there to be a deterrent. Now, the body cam is probably not going to stop the most severe 1% of incidents in the game. But the most severe 1% of incidents aren't the majority of the issue. By definition, by the fact is 1%. If someone's hell bent on doing you damage, like if you're a policeman, someone's hell bent on doing a policeman damage, he's going to do him damage whether he's wearing a body cam or not, right? So really, it's there as a deterrent for the majority of behaviour from spectators and players, like to quell that in the best way possible, to quell the verbal and physical threatening abuse, and it's just a much bigger deterrent for that. Obviously, in the example you give, you can't stop that from happening, of course. I mean, and maybe it is going onto the cloud, and maybe it's fine, and that's how that situation is avoided. Maybe it's both. Hopefully, it's both, and then that solves that problem immediately. But I do think, I think it's a good idea. I think it would be a shame, like it's another piece of kit that referees are going to have to buy. And like when you first become a referee, like buying kit, buying boots, buying whistles, buying pumps, buying bags, buying all that, plus now an expensive body cam on top of that, isn't ideal, especially if you're 13, 14 years old. But I think it's a slamming indictment that the UK is the first country in the world to have to do it. The FA are the first footballing body in the world to have to do it, and I think it shows that there's been a big problem for a very long time. Drastic measures require drastic action, and actually it shows that the FA haven't been strong enough on this for the last 10, 15 years in order to stop it to begin with.
I hadn't even given thought as to whether or not it was recording everything or had to be activated. So body-worn cameras on police officers have to be activated. Yeah, it's straightforward. They simply have to sort of touch a button on their chest and it starts recording. But if that is the case for these cameras, then that is something I know from doing lots of cases that a lot of police officers in the heat of the moment simply forget to do it because they're more preoccupied with protecting themselves or trying to do something else, and so it would be a concern if this was a situation where you actually had to activate it yourself. And as try as hard as I can, I haven't found any of the technical data surrounding the devices, so I don't know what the situation is. So it might be that my concerns are without foundation. But
I reckon the big differences between policemen and referees is policemen have it on their body all of the time, so they're very used to it being their kit, right? Like if they're in uniform, they have a body cam strapped to them, and it's not even strapped to them, it's like hooked on, it's not like on their, they can't feel it on their body. Whereas if you were strapping this on as a referee, you'd be very consciously aware, like I am when I referee, and I wear like an over shoulder comms kit, right? So I put my comms in my chest and then I have the wire coming up to my ear. I'm nearly always aware I've got that on my chest when I'm refereeing. So I think that will probably not be such a big deal. I think you'll physically be normalized to it a lot less because it will feel very weird most of the time. I think it's a good thing. I mean, here in Queensland, Queensland Football have introduced like a docking system for any abuse that we report to teams. They lose points. They'll get financial fines. They get 3 strikes. It's like a 3 strikes and out policy. And I think that's a really good idea as well. And I think that will help too. But yeah, I think punishing the clubs properly for stuff is the only way you can really fight this. I'm all for giving referees power, but equal to that, you have to punish the clubs properly as well. And without that, no one's really gonna. I'm not sure, because if it only comes down to personal issues as well, there's no collective responsibility, and that's a bit of a problem as well, because you need the collective responsibility of the club, and then that will help inspire the personal responsibility. And I'm not sure if just slamming the individual, which has been the FA's policy pretty much for the whole time, right? The individual is the one who gets the punishment, not the club. I'm not sure that's enough of a deterrent, because if you've got 11 mates coming around you going, let's stop it, we stop it, this is going to affect us all, then it might be easier to get more people on your side as the referee compared to not.
But what the announcement of this trial has done is caused sort of a lot of the media to talk again about what problem exists. And interestingly, I read an article in The Guardian which said the BBC did a poll of, I think, 900 referees when this was all being announced. And over 300 of them said they had been physically assaulted by a player or referee or player, spectator, or member of the management team, which is, we said it before, it's no surprise, it's a terrible stat. But whilst we've been chatting, I have actually managed to find the website for the people that are providing it. So it's a company called Reveal, and if anyone wants to look it up, it's their website's revealmedia.co.uk. What's quite interesting about it is answered one of my queries. So it is a referee activated device, so it's not recording all the time, but the referee presses the button in order to start it recording. And what's interesting is that it's a bit like the police cameras in that it has the capacity to then record, I think, up to 2 minutes prior to the button being activated. So it's effectively constantly in the background recording. And when you activate that button, if you set it up in the way they recommend, it then will capture the 2 minutes that precede it. So it sounds as though I can't find anything on there which talks about whether or not it's connected to the net at all. But I don't think it is.
Let's just take a brief pause there, right? Like, this whole conversation has been framed we're now comparing referees to policemen. Right? We're now expecting 13, 14-year-olds to have some ability in creating civil order in the engagement of a sport. Like,
I know.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. we know we repeatedly said it's a terrible state of affairs, and as we both said, if this could go some way to trying to, as the tech people put on the website, deter and de-escalate and document violence and aggression, then it's a good thing. But yeah, it's not great, but let's see how the thing goes. I mean, I have to say, for my part, I think I'd make it an immediate ban from the league for anybody that steals a cam from a referee. I mean, I think you just make that as a law. You know, you're suspended from any league. Yeah, well, I agree. If that happens,
I do think bans are easily got around, to be honest. So maybe it's a bit harder now. But yeah, hey ho. Should we move on? That's quite a depressing subject, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, but it's very topical, so it needed to be covered.
It is, absolutely. My blog, I wrote it.
Yeah, you did.
Have you read it?
I have read it, yeah.
Good.
And
are you fitter now?
I made my observation to you, which interestingly was an observation that I think was shared by some of the other people that viewed it online. So there was at least one comment that supported what I was saying.
Was there? I didn't see that.
Yeah, no.
Was that your alter ego, Edward?
No, so you've put up this really, really helpful, really well considered, comprehensive blog on referee fitness and getting yourself fit and match fit, and reference to the fitness test and how you can prepare for it, and why you have to do certain types of exercise, and focus on different types of muscles groups to reflect the movements you do as a referee. I think it's excellent, really, really good. But my observation to you was that is very much a guide that is towards the sort of the higher echelons of football refereeing. I know you'll come back to me and say, no, it's of equal applicability to everybody. But the reality is, okay, but it is very much geared, in my view, towards referees like yourselves, climbing the ladder, doing the fitness test. And what I said to you was, what would be really helpful is to have a sort of a watered down version of that for grassroots referees, because I'm not training for the fitness test.
No.
And I'm not refereeing the high level of football that you are, but I would still find it really interesting to know,
what to do,
what sort of exercise I should be doing, why I need to think about certain exercises to improve my ability to change direction quickly, why I need to understand about I've got to improve my capacity to sprint, all those sort of things that I think are really helpful, but you just have to dumb it down for us grassroots refs.
Well,
a simple folk.
I wrote it, that was kind of my intention. I love how defensive I'm getting. I'm like, stop attacking my blog. Especially it took me an entire month to write. Look, I maybe I just didn't make the point clear enough in the blog, but I'm like, you can pick and choose whatever you want from this. I kind of wanted it to be and then you go in and you're like, okay, well, I'll take that workout and I can just do that workout. The thing is for grassroots referees, the key thing to remember is anything will probably help you. A combination of strength training and a combination of cardio. So if you take those two aspects out of the blog and just work on those two little things within the context of the bigger blog, take one of the workouts, take one of the strategies I give you in order to improve your cardio, which could be, even although it might be framed under the fitness test, in the fitness test, I say run a 5K and try and do the first 12 minutes, try and cover what you need for the fitness test. You don't necessarily have to do that, but set yourself a target. So for you, Ed, and your creaky hips, I might say, I want you to get onto a treadmill. Let's not make it a 5K, make it a 3K. Then your first kilometer, I want you to work on doing a PB in your first kilometer, whatever your best kilometer time is. Then I want you to go away and just keep working on that for 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. Each time you do the 3K on the treadmill, just try and nail that and get that first kilometer time down. And then overall, try and just keep reducing the time of the 3K run you're going to do.
And that is all really helpful,
but not clear in the blog.
No, but I don't want grassroots referees to look at that and find it impenetrable or not applicable to them because it's sort of outside their scope. I think all those points you just made are really good. I mean, I found it interesting. For example, I think you do a breakdown just to prove I have read your article.
Right.
You do a breakdown, I think, of the types of activity that a referee does in the period of 90 minutes, like sprinting, and that's
500
really
changes of direction.
Yeah, exactly. That I found fascinating because it made me think. Actually, as a grassroots referee, I should be, training and working towards improving my body's capacity to deal with all that, because that puts enormous stresses on the body,
on the joints,
and you can't expect to go out there every few weeks and do that without risking, injury. So I think it's great. I think when you find the time to
do a dumbed down version. Shall I call it
version,
a dumbed down version?
I think just call it grassroots fitness for grassroots referees.
Fitness. Okay, fine. I'll do that.
And I think that would be.
It would be a lot easier to write.
Yeah, it will, because you can.
I've got the groundwork. Okay.
You've done the groundwork, and there's large swathes of what you have done, which I think are not applicable to the grassroots referees. So I think you can probably do it.
I would say I have had a couple of FIFA referees tell me it was a bloody brilliant article.
Yeah, well, that there we go. That just proves my point.
I know, but that's annoyed me a little bit, because I wasn't writing it for them. I really wasn't, because so much of the fitness stuff out there for referees is like what FIFA want you to do, and it's so overwhelming.
Yeah, no,
like,
listen, it's
over the top. But maybe I was thinking about people who are thinking about making a career out of it. I did try to put those in, but I think I probably just got.
And listen, we will have listeners who, and we know we've got listeners because we get people writing to us telling us about their career progression and how they're sort of going up the levels. And for them, I think it will be invaluable, because it gives you really great tips about passing things like the fitness test. Which,
if you want to read it and you haven't found it yet, it's on our socials, but also I'll put it in the show notes to the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. It's definitely worth a read for everybody. But as I say, we'll have one later on, hopefully for grassroots referees as well. But yeah, I think is that probably it for the news.
Ed's now my publisher.
Oh no, I'm your editor, Adam.
Yeah,
that's clearly. I'm here to
in public. Well, these meetings meant done in private.
Channel your energies into the right direction.
I think that's it for news.
Yeah, I think so. Because we're already sort of half an hour in, and we haven't even got onto the law.
Yeah. I know.
It's now 20 to 11, Adam, in the UK.
Are we going to do questions, or do you want to just jump onto the law?
Should we do? I think we should. I think we should do a question, and I'll tell you the question I think we should do. I know that we've had. I've been seeing online a lot of people are getting appointments to big games at the moment, finals, that sort of thing.
Finals are coming out, aren't they? Which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I've had so many people message me being like, "I've just been appointed to a cup final, and it's great. Like, I'm really excited."
So, if we're going to pick one question, I think we should pick Craigie Roberts' question.
Correct. That's what I was going to choose.
Oh, there we go. Great minds think alike. And so Craigie wrote into us and said, I've just been appointed to be an assistant referee at a county cup final. Well, congratulations, first of all, for that.
That's great.
Any advice or tips for me as a first time being an assistant referee? It's an under 16 game, but still in my first season. I feel it's a good sign, and I want to give it my all. Well, firstly, that is a really good sign, because the people doing appointments for cup finals are trying to appoint people that are obviously good, and the mere fact you've been assigned is probably affirmation of the fact that you are doing well, which is really good news. And it's a privilege to be involved in a cup final. So well done to him. But yeah, go on, what are you going to say?
So the first thing I want to say is, like, this is always the way when you're in grassroots. I remember this happening to me when I was in the UK. My first appointment as an assistant was like a cup final or like a cup semi-final. And you're like, I've never assisted before, and now I'm in a blinking final. Like, how's that fair? So that's always irritating. It'd be nice if you could get some practice as a referee before you go into that, as an assistant referee, before you go into that situation. But it is what it is, and we'd all take the appointment because it's a great achievement. So well done, and well done to everyone else who's messaged us about it as well. I would say go and listen to our episode on the assistant referee, because we covered a lot of this stuff on there, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think I pinned you on like what would say your top 5 tips would be for an assistant referee. And there's some really good stuff in there. I think my first bit of advice would be just listen to the ref and take the direction from the ref, like as wrote. Don't feel like you have to get involved. One of the hardest things as an assistant is just knowing that you are kind of, even though you have a responsibility, that sometimes that responsibility is letting the referee run the game and you just staying out of it a little bit sometimes. and just knowing when you're required and when you're not, understanding like when to step in and when not to step in is a really good art of a referee, and your judgment on that comes from listening to the referee's brief before the game and really listening to what he wants. I'd say ask lots of questions to the referee. Chances are he'll be a bit nervous and a bit expectant too, because it's a cup final and he's going to want to help manage that whole event as well, and he's going to require your assistance in managing that whole event as well. So ask lots of questions. Like if there's something you've got a question about that you're not sure about, the best thing you can do is ask the referee what he wants, what his expectation of that is, because then you'll all be on the same page. And chances are there's 2 assistants and there's 1 referee, and chances are by you asking those questions, the other assistant is probably thinking of the questions as well, and then it just gets everything out into the open. As an assistant referee, I just try to be the biggest sponge possible from, like, if I was going out with level 3 refs or, football league referees, I'd just ask all of the questions. I'd want to know what they'd want me to do. I'd ask them, why did they do this? Why did they do that in the game and stuff like that? Because I just wanted to learn all those little subtle, soft tricks that I might not have been aware of. And I just think, I think that's the art of refereeing. It will feel weird and strange, like running with a flag and stuff like that. So maybe practice that beforehand. Just go out to the park and just practice turning with a flag in your hand. Practice like switching it in your hands and stuff. I still drop a flag quite regularly when I'm on the line. And just watch the pros, like watch a game of football and only watch your assistant referee to see where they stand at penalties, to see where they stand at throw-ins, to see how they direct their left backs, their right backs, the people who are taking the throw-ins, to see how they flag, how straight their arm is, what direction they go up and what direction they come down and stuff like that. And just try and copy what looks professional. And that's a massive part of being an assistant, like what looks professional, because everything, like your arm and everything, is kind of overemphasized because there's a flag on the end of it. So you really want to make sure you look, and if really, as an assistant, looking the part is kind of 3/4 of the job.
What's the actual proper procedure in terms of the hand in which you have the flag? Because I remember when I first started being assistant referee, I learned so much because no one ever teaches you about being assistant referee as part of the referee course. Correct. It's something you learn from either watching or people telling you. So I had to pick it up from sort of people watching me and saying, do this, do that. And I think what I was always told is you sort of, it's difficult to verbalize it because I can know what I'm doing when I'm doing it, but it's to sort of have the flag in the arm of the direction in which I'm running is what I was always told. And so, I mean, is that right? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I like, because the direction in which you're running is, if you're running forwards, both arms are facing forwards. So it's always have the flag in the hand that is facing the field of play.
Oh yeah, definitely the hand. If you're running, sorry, you're quite right. If you're running down, so you're running, down the touch line, yep, in the direction of the goal, then yes, I agree with you. It's with your hand that is
on the inside.
In the side. I'm thinking more about, because a lot of the movement you do as a referee is crabbing,
yep,
and so that's what I was always told, to have the flag in the hand in the direction which you are travelling, but you'll shake your head. So
yeah, sorry, Edward. I would also like to say, actually, now I think they do go through all of this kind of stuff on the referee's course, which is great. They do flag work. So basically, it needs to be in your left hand at all times.
Right. Okay. Well, that's news to me.
It's the, unless you're running up towards the halfway line, and then you need it in the hand facing the field of play. But you always want it because you want the flag facing the majority of the field at all times. And the majority of the field is going to be in your left hand if you're running left backs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you need it. So the default position is left. And then if you've got an attack and throw, you switch down low, come up to the right. And then if you've got a defensive free kick, your left hand's there ready, defensive throw in, you can just go up with your left hand straight away. If you're crabbing and players either or, then I have it in the middle of my body and I just have it kind of ready to go either way. And the ones that always get you is the ball in and out, because you'll put the flag up in the air and then like it'll be on the wrong side. So then you have to bring it back down, and then you give the throw in the right way. That you always taught to try and get that movement right down below. Never switch the flag above your head. Always do it down low. So even if you do go up to signify the ball's gone out of play, go up dead straight, and then make sure the referee's seen that the ball's gone out of play, and then drop the flag, and then give what direction you're doing. That's the neatest, cleanest way to do that. So you always want it in the left hand, facing the majority of the field of play, unless you're running up the touchline towards the center circle, and then it'll be in your right hand.
And that's not something I've been told before, and that is contrary to intuition for me, because I'm naturally right-handed. So I'd lead my right hand. But anyway, so that's useful to know. But it'd be interesting for people who are listening who have done the referee course lately, if they might want to message us in and tell us what flag work is covered in the refereeing course. And also if people want to message us and let us know if they've been taught different ways to the ways that you've just described. But anyway, going back to what Craig's question was, I mean, I think you've covered the really important point, which is that issue of comms. And by that, I mean your communication, not sort of having comms, electronic comms whilst you're recording.
You won't have that on an under 16s.
Which you won't have that on a 16s. But it is really important because two aspects to the communications. One is, as you really probably pointed out, it's that pre-match briefing that will give you all the information you're going to need to know. And importantly, the parameters of what the referee is expecting you to be in charge of and the areas he's expecting you to cover. And there's no difficulty to all the decent refs I've been with who've done their pre-match briefings to assistants have covered pretty much everything. But I wouldn't be hesitant at all if you think there's something which you're not clear about. The whole purpose of that pre-match briefing is to ask those questions. Don't go away thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd, wonder what he wants to do about penalties, or what's going to, don't leave that hanging there. Ask that question." And the communications really follows onto the pitch, because without electronic comms, there's real importance in terms of communication, in terms of eye contact with the referee, communication, as we described before in that previous episode about, the way in which you put which hand you put the flag in to try and, when it's by your side, to give the referee the heads up as to what you think it is, but leaving him to be the ultimate arbiter as to which direction the throw goes in. So that's really good. I think over and above that, the other ones are just really kind of basic, and I'm just going to trot them off very, very quickly. I would say focus. That's really, really important, because it's quite difficult to be overawed by the occasion or by the fact there's a bigger crowd than usual, or the importance of the game suddenly gets the nerves going. Try your best to focus for the match. That'll help. I think also make sure you're really well prepared. So pack your kit up well in advance. Get there ahead of the time which you asked to be there. Last thing you want on an occasion like that is turning up late, stressed because you got stuck in traffic, or you missed your bus, whatever. Get there well ahead of when you're meant to be there. And my final point I had on my list of things was enjoy. These are great occasions. Enjoy it. It's a privilege to do, and enjoy the game. So that'd be my tips. But thanks to Craigie for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in one more thing: is get on the referee's wavelength. Don't try and make decisions based on how you would referee the game. Yeah. So the referee is really in charge of the team, and it's your job to fall in behind that and to support that as much as possible. So you might think, "Oh, I'd do it differently." You may well do it differently, and you'll get your opportunity, but this isn't your opportunity to do it differently. In these moments, it's to do exactly as the referee has asked, and to allow him to control that game, because everyone's a bit different, and we all have our quirks, and those quirks are what make a referee feel comfortable out there and make him feel confident in his decisions. And just with everything, like we said in our episode about assistant refereeing, take your time. As an assistant, you think you need to make the decision so quickly, but actually the longer you take, the more you let the players tell you what the decision is, the more you just communicate with the referee in that way, slowly, calmly, on top of things, the easier it all is.
And also,
it makes such a big difference when you take your time.
You want to be the assistant supporting actor in this whole production. The referee's the lead player. You're the supporting actor. It's not about you, and you don't want to make it about you either.
No.
the last thing you want is people's memory as they go over the match was, bloody hell, that assistant, he was flagging everything, giving every decision.
Giving it a twirl. And also, don't touch the ball. Don't touch the ball. No matter how close it is to you, don't touch the ball.
As tempting as it is, even if it comes beneath your feet, lift your foot up and let it go.
Yes, please. Cool.
So that's...
Yeah. And I was just going to say, enjoy it and then think about it. What did you learn and what can you improve next time? Like, give yourself a post-analysis.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask for feedback from the ref. I mean, it's really good because he or she will tell you whether or not you think you've done a good job. So, there we go. So I'd love to do more of the post-bag because I think the post-bag is one of the best parts of our podcast. But we've swerved the law last week. I think we should do part of it tonight, Adam. I don't think we can do it all because we are already well into this podcast. So I think we'll get to a convenient point. I'll give you a couple of fun facts to keep you, all the fans, excited, and then I can get to bed.
Did you see one of the? I
did
that picture of me that I
you posted a picture on social media saying caption this.
One of them is I will not have anyone tell me that the Ed's Fun Facts is out of time with the music. What a great
jingle
that was, yeah.
I know.
I thought you'd like that one.
Sarcastic listeners, which we love.
So, because that's basically you. Right, what's next?
That is, exactly. So we are going on to law number 12, which is entitled Fouls and Misconduct. And as we said at the outset, this is probably one of the most important, if not potentially the most important
you said law. That about offside.
Yeah, I think actually... no, I think what I said before is if you were to ask the layperson what the most important law is, they'd probably say offside. But I think from a referee point of view, there's a lot more in this section. Mm-hmm. I think this section kind of makes offside look quite straightforward, in fact. I think this is...
Great.
I know. So let's go through a bit of it tonight, and then we'll finish it all next week.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So introduction. Well, the opening line for this law simply says direct and indirect free kicks and penalty kicks can only be awarded for offences committed when the ball is in play, which is obviously, I think that's pretty much obvious to most people.
Makes sense, but if you do think about that takes a lot of pressure off of a lot of the very complex decisions that you might have to make, like, someone doing issues, like you always restart play from the point in which you stop play. And that's really important to remember. So I think that if you just keep that in mind, like if you're worrying about what the restart is, do I need to give a free kick here? Just ask yourself, was the ball in play when you blew your whistle? And if not, then fine. And I think it can take a lot of pressure off, actually. So I quite like that. Simple though it seems.
The first substantive part of Law 12 is entitled the direct free kick. And I have to say, if I haven't refereed for a while, I go back and look at this again before I go and referee. It's one of the laws which I do refresh my memory from. And every time I do that for this law, I do come away from it thinking to myself, actually, there is a structure to this. It's not random. I mean, there is a structure, as we'll see as we go through it. But it says that it tells you the circumstances in which a direct free kick should be awarded. And it's when a player commits any of the following offences against an opponent in a manner considered by the referee to be either careless, reckless, or using excessive force. We'll come back in a moment because those are all
really
defined.
Really important.
Those are really important distinctions: careless, reckless, and excessive force. You need to always have those in your mind when you're thinking about whether or not you're giving a free kick, and more importantly, if there's going to be a sanction for the foul that's been committed. So if you commit any of the following carelessly, recklessly, or using excessive force, then it's a direct free kick. So first of them is charges, jumps at, kicks or attempts to kick, pushes, strikes or attempts to strike, including headbutt, tackles or challenges, and trips or attempts to trip. So it's all those are all things which, if you commit them against an opponent in a careless, reckless, or excessive force way, is a direct free kick. And I think that actually is all pretty straightforward, isn't
That
it?
covers most things, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
when you think of a tackle taking place, like in most tackles, one of those things probably happens, like to a degree. And then you have to step in and be like, okay, was that unfair or fair? Did it use carelessness, recklessness, or excessive force, or was it just a natural part of football? Like you could look at that and think, God, I'd be stopping play every 30 seconds in a game, couldn't you? Do you not
Yeah.
think? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think what's also important to remember here is that there doesn't have to be contact for there to be a direct free kick. So that those things can all happen. So, for example, an attempt to kick somebody is a direct free kick, right? If you don't make contact, it doesn't impact upon whether or not it's a free kick or not. But so I think that's a point that's worth remembering.
The attempts to, I think, are always really important because everyone's like,
yeah,
I come across that all the time, and I'm always saying to players, look, you kicked or attempted to kick him. You attempted to trip him up, therefore it's a free kick. They're like, but I didn't make contact. No, but you attempted it. And that's I always have that in mind, and it always gets me out of trouble.
It's really important to remember that because, you know, as you say, players are very quick to point out, you know, it didn't actually happen. You know, I didn't make contact with him. I didn't trip him up. And obviously your power for as far as awarding direct free kicks goes beyond where it actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to contact, then this is when you need to sort of understand and know the definitions of careless, reckless, and excessive force. Because if you commit any of those actions that we've just listed,
with contact,
but you do it with contact, right? So we know already that's a direct free kick. But then the next question is, what's the sanction, if any, for what's just happened? So your decision is he's tripped him up. I'm giving a direct free kick. The question then is, what am I going to do next? Is there a sanction? And so it defines what careless, reckless, and excessive force means. And once you categorize it, it then dictates to you as to what the sanction is.
Yeah. So careless would just be a free kick. Reckless will be a yellow card, and excessive force will be a send-off and a red card. And those three things are defined very clearly. Careless is when a player shows a lack of attention or consideration when making a challenge, or acts without any kind of precaution, or acts without precaution. No disciplinary sanction is needed if someone's just being a bit careless. Reckless is when a player acts with the disregard to the danger or consequences for an opponent and must be cautioned. So that's reckless. I find those two probably harder to discern against than necessarily reckless to use an excessive force.
I agree. Because excessive force, I think, is when a player exceeds the necessary use of force and or endangers the safety of an opponent, must be sent off. And I think instinctively for referees, those kind of
generally know what that feels and looks like.
They stand out, exactly. So you have an innate sense as to what is a red card, and excessive force scenario.
And if you don't get that feeling, if you don't get that sense of from it, then to me that's a key signal when I don't want to be overzealous in this moment. I need to check my instincts, like here, or I like if all the players might think that, but if it hasn't upset your gut in some way, then I know that's for me that's a big guiding principle between excessive force and reckless. But careless and reckless, that's less defined.
It's not. I think the distinction between those is slightly more difficult. Again, I think you do sometimes get a sort of feel for. I mean, careless for me in my head is someone who plainly doesn't. I know this is not how it's defined, but for me, careless is someone who you think is actually trying to play the ball. They're not trying to simply foul anybody. They just do it a little bit clumsily. That for me is always. I always think that is careless. And I think reckless is the next step where you take an action and you're showing disregard. Being reckless is what the definition says, as to the consequences. And that, I think, is where the distinction lies. It's not always easy.
No, the thing to remember, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think the thing to remember here is careless is when a foul, and remember, fouls are part of the game, right? They're in the laws. They're part of the game of football. Fouls happen. Okay? It's part of football. Careless is when a foul has happened, yet everyone's still like sort of playing in the spirit of the game.
Yeah.
Reckless is when they're not playing in the spirit of the game.
Reckless
is when they're not trying to let football be football, and they're trying to stop football from happening. And that's where you come in with the yellow card.
Yeah, and again, I think
it's probably the best way I can define it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you also do get a sort of innate feel for that as well, because it's kind of like, I think I mentally compartmentalize in my head. There's scenarios where someone's legitimately trying to play the ball, but they sort of miss time or whatever. It's all being done with good intentions. Then when you got the reckless ones, which is where they sort of do something, it's a little bit more stupid. They don't really give much thought to the other player when they've, done what they've done.
It's a more selfish act, right?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's really it's interesting, isn't it? I think for me to verbalize it now, I'm finding it quite difficult. But I think with experience, you do get a feel for it. Yeah. So that's the first part of it. The next section is entitled "Handling the Ball." And
so sorry, it just goes through, doesn't it? It says a direct free kick is awarded if a player commits any of the following offences.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, I missed that. But
handball, except for the goalkeeper within the penalty area.
Yeah,
holding an opponent, impeding an opponent with contact, bites or spits at someone on the team lists, or a match official. Yep. Throws an object at the ball, an opponent, or a match official, or makes contact with the ball with a held object. They're all direct free kick offences.
I think again,
and they all have different sanctions within them.
Instinctively, I think that's what you'd expect. I think for those sorts of offences, that's all pretty straightforward. So the next section is handling the ball. It points out first of all the what part of the body constitutes the arm, and as we now know, because it's changed, it's effectively the sort of the shirt cuff.
I'm not sure it's the shirt cuff. I think it's a little bit higher than that. I think it's more under the armpit.
Yeah, as I'm saying, to instinctively going slightly
it's
above.
Not quite where the shirt falls. There's a really good graphic on this. They've released a really good graphic to determine that. Well, they make a bit of the arm red and a bit of the arm green, and the green bit's fine. Do. It's kind of like the shoulder, and kind of like, how you might not have this, but because I'm strong and lean, there's like a dip on my tricep where, like I'd say it's there, where my shoulder kind of finishes, where my delt finishes, and where my tricep starts. If they
define it as the bottom boundary of the arm is in line with the bottom of the armpit, is what they say.
Yeah.
Which exactly again, right. I think it's like pretty much just about what we were just discussing. So it explains that it's an offence if a player deliberately touches the ball with their hand or arm. So, for example, moving the hand or arm towards the ball. Well, that we all understand. This is the next bit is a concept I think with which we've all become familiar, those of us who watch football on TV. It's this concept now that it is a handball if you touch the ball with your hand or arm when it's made your body unnaturally bigger. And it says a player is considered to have done that when the position of their hand or arm is not a consequence of or justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation. And by having their hand or arm in such a position, the player takes a risk of their hand or arm being hit by the ball or being penalised. So there's classic examples of where a defender goes to defend the ball. For some reason, as he sort of goes out to kick it, the arm comes up in the air like that, and it strikes the hand. That is the hand in an unnatural position. I find
that law so hard to judge when someone's sliding. Like they're trying to do a sliding block and they mistime it. The shot comes in and it hits their hand because they're on the floor and their hand's up a little bit as they're sliding. Those ones are the hardest to judge in that situation.
And I think the VAR struggle with those as well because.
But I think unnaturally bigger. I'm not sure you need your arm in the air, but you need it for balance when you're sliding on the floor. Sometimes it's really difficult. So again, it comes down to you're the referee. You just have to make a decision and stick to it in those situations. Either way, and similar to what we was talking about at the start, you can find an argument either way, and the more you look at it, the more you'll change your opinion.
Well, there was that interesting one. I don't know whether you saw it, Adam, but the Chelsea West Ham game that took place about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where Chelsea player strikes the ball, West Ham defender goes down, is falling down, and in falling down, puts his arm down in essence to break his fall.
Yeah.
The ball hits his hand, and there was VAR said no penalty.
Yeah.
And I can understand that decision because
Can you, as a Chelsea fan, can you?
Well, I can because instinctively he
for his own safety,
he's breaking his fall, right?
Yeah.
So he's putting his arm down. I think what caused the controversy in that one is that the defender, when you look at the footage, you can tell by his facial reaction that I think he knows he's got away with one because he immediately turns around to see the direction which the ball has gone. He's deviated it away from the goal, and just my viewpoint, I think you could tell that he could potentially have gone to ground without having that contact. But I think that's an example of how I think those situations on the floor are always going to be more difficult.
And that's also just part of the risk of football, right? Like that player, if it had gone the other way, he'd have been sent off, and he was happy to take that risk. So there you go. Like, okay.
Yeah. The next bit is, I think, a point that's really worth remembering, because it's an offence if a player scores in the opponent's goal directly from their hand or arm, even if it's accidental. So that's a really important thing to know. So, if you see a ball comes into the striker, it bounces up, hits his arm, it's plainly not intentional. He then shoots the ball in the back of the net. That is an offence. Goal doesn't stand. Even though it's an accidental one.
Wait. So can we let's just be clear here. So this means if the ball hits an attacker's arm, then they get possession and then they score. Or does it mean they've basically punched the ball into the net?
So it's both those scenarios are offences. So the scenario one is, which is an offence, if the ball, I'm the striker, the ball comes in, the hands are by my side.
A la Thierry Henry against Ireland.
Yeah, right? It hits my arm, it goes in the back of the net. That is now an offence, not a goal. Offense.
Yep.
And secondly, if it comes in, hits the striker's arm, again, striker's not deliberately touched the ball with his hand, and then scored, that's an offence and the goal doesn't stand. And I think the whole purpose behind this, it seems to be, this is the whole drive in the last few years, just to try and simplify. I know that's their plan. I'm not sure it's actually
maybe not simplify, but they're trying to eradicate situations upon which we might not be able to decide whether it's handball or not.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to get rid of any sort of ambiguity or potential controversy regarding goals involving arms. So I think those are really that's an important thing to remember.
Absolutely.
Players get a bit upset when you disallow goals, and because it wasn't intentional,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And again, a guiding light, this is spirit of the game. Handball's not part of the game. So if someone's gaining a big advantage by using their hand, probably should be handball.
Yeah,
and you're going to get 9 times out of 10 on the grassroots pitch. That's generally the right decision. And then it just goes on to say that the goalkeeper can't handball the ball outside of his penalty area.
They spend a lot of time basically on this
saying that
paragraph saying that a goalkeeper can't handball the ball outside his box, which I kind of thought was blindly obvious to everybody. But I suppose that section does say, though, that if the goalkeeper handles the ball inside the penalty area when they're not permitted to do so back pass, for example, picking up, then it's an indirect free kick awarded, but there's no disciplinary sanction for that scenario. However, if the offence is playing the ball a second time with or without the hand or arm after restart and before it touched another player, the goalkeeper then must be sanctioned if it stops a promising attack or denies an opponent or the opposing team a goal or an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. So there's a lot to take on board there, isn't there?
Just basically, just do your best to not let goalkeepers touch the ball twice.
Yeah, I hate it when goalkeepers touch the ball, pick up the ball when they're not meant to. It's that immediate sort of panic because it's like, okay, what is it? What's the sanction? What type of kick is it? What's the penalty? It's those are difficult ones. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, but it does still happen.
Yes, but the fact it doesn't happen very often means that you've probably got more leniency in restarting in a way that makes sense for the game as opposed to necessarily is true in law, because no one will know otherwise, especially if you're on the grassroots, just chilling out with your under 15s or whatever. Yeah, it's that's not easy because then you've got to take into account Dogso, you've got to take into account all kinds of other things. I would just say if the goalkeepers pick the ball up twice, just blow your whistle. Could not be a yellow card, and just give a direct free kick.
And you know,
but it's also because it's in the penalty area, isn't it? So it's a direct free kick.
It's got to be indirect. It's an indirect free kick, isn't it?
No, it's under direct free kick. It's under the law, the direct free kick.
Oh no, no, you're right. Yeah.
However, if the offence, so it would be. Oh, hang on. Handles the ball inside the penalty area.
No, it's an indirect.
And indirect free kick is awarded.
Yeah, it's indirect.
That's
free
weird.
Kick.
So they've put an indirect free kick in the law that states direct free kick.
You made me question myself a moment then, Adam, because I was thinking it's an indirect free kick, and then you suddenly start telling me it's direct free kick. Because if it was a direct free kick, Adam, what would it be?
It'd be a penalty.
Exactly.
I thought it was one of those quirks, you see.
Yeah.
Well. It's basically the same as a back pass, isn't it? Yeah,
no, exactly. And to be honest, if you just remember that the sanction for that scenario is always an indirect free kick. So that's the most important thing to remember. If you give out a yellow card or don't give out a yellow card, no one's going to say to you, referee, don't you know that when it's a that scenario, it's a yellow card? And also, if it feels like you stopped a dog zone, it's going to be very obvious. And that section then completes with the diagram, which was one you were referring to earlier on. So worth going and looking at IFAB just to see they sort of do a diagram to point out to you what is where the arm is defined from and what isn't handball.
Interestingly, he hasn't got well-defined traps or deltoids.
No, he's not in great. It's not actually in great shape. I mean, his legs don't look really good at all. But in fact, his legs look rather peculiar. But
yeah, they look like they're not almost. They don't all join. Anyway, an indirect free kick. Should we do that?
Well, I was going to say, did you want to do that? Because we're. I mean, I know we've only covered a third of this section. I say a third because so that people know what's coming up next.
Yeah,
as there four. So I know there's indirect free kick is next. Then there is disciplinary action. And yeah, you're quite right. There's a full section, which is the restart of play after fouls, misconduct. But I'm conscious of the fact that we're
running over time. Yeah, and you've still got some fun facts.
I've still got some fun facts, and I need some sleep, Adam. More importantly,
okay, we'll rest it there, shall we?
And we've given them a good hour of quality entertainment.
I think it's been quality entertainment. Are we going to do fun facts or not?
Yeah, we're going to do fun facts. Of course, we are.
Cue jingle.
It's now time for Ed's Fun Facts.
That is definitely in time, I will have you know.
As I said last time, I had prepared quite a lot of facts for the law number 12 because fouls, misconduct is quite a lot to deal with. But I'm gonna obviously say some back because we've still got at least one more episode that's going to deal with fouls, misconduct. But I thought we'd do it a little bit this evening, and I'm going to sort of hark back to some of the fun facts I talked to you about last time. So you remember I talked to you about how cards came about, Ken Aston seeing the traffic lights coming up with the system. But it's interesting because although that's when cards were introduced, you remember I said to you they were introduced for the 1970 Mexico World Cup. That's not when sanctions first came in force. So,
right. You mean sanctions by the governing body?
But sanctions by the referee or the umpire, for example, as it was initially. So, I suppose it doesn't really come as an enormous surprise, but back in the origins of the game, there were sanctions. So, you were able to give free kicks for certain types of infringements, and you were able to caution people. But what you didn't have, obviously, is that in the form of a card being produced. Yes. So, and obviously, as we said before, the whole rationale of the cards being introduced was to make it easier for people following the game to see what was happening. Who knows what's happening in a conversation between the referee and a player on the pitch, whether he's cautioned him or not. But interesting. I thought it was just a note that going back to you'll recall, I told you before how at the origins of the game there was an umpire for each team. And they would try and mediate between the captains So they're trying to mediate, what had happened on the pitch. And eventually those umpires gave way to referees back in 1881. And the referee's job was then to sort of settle disputes between the umpires that had previously been appointed by the two clubs. It was back in that year as well that the caution was introduced for ungentlemanly behaviour. And a player could in fact be sent off right from the very origins back in 1881 for violent conduct. So at its very foundations of the game, we had, these sanctions. They just weren't, supported by a card system. Now, you remember I told you last week it was introduced for the 1970 World Cup. How many red cards do you think there were in the 1970 World Cup, Adam?
God. Can I have options?
No.
Okay. 17.
There were no red cards. No red cards in the Mexico World Cup. Probably because no one really knew what the hell they were doing with them.
Really?
Yeah.
1970. That's nuts.
I know.
So when England won the World Cup, cards weren't a thing. You couldn't be sent off.
Cards. And in fact, that's one of the problems. That's what Ken Aston was. One of the things he said was that Alf Ramsey, is it Alf Ramsey? Yeah, it was Alf Ramsey.
Sir Alf Ramsey.
He didn't know that some of his players had in fact been cautioned because he said, I didn't know about it because I'm watching from sidelines in Wembley Stadium. I had no idea. And that's one of the sort of things that provoked this discussion about how do we have a system whereby people understand what's going on. Now, you'll recall that I told you that the UK was a bit late to the party because although it was introduced in 1970, you'll no doubt recall that I told you last time that they didn't become used in England until 1976. But how many red cards do you think there were on the first day of the 1976-77 season, Adam?
7.
No. It was lower. That was
0.
2.
2, okay.
There's been a confusion, it seems, as to precisely why they were given. And
we really didn't set ourselves up for success, did we, as referees?
This really didn't get the best of starts. I mean, I don't think really people understood it. I'm not sure maybe the referees understood it. Yeah. And that's really exemplified by the circumstances in which those two red cards were given. The first player in UK football to receive a red card was a player called David Wagstaff, who was playing for Blackburn Rovers. And he got his red card for, it's described as arguing with the ref. 36 minutes into the game.
Right. I thought it was going to be arguing with the ref for 36 minutes, which I've definitely had players do.
And the second person to get a red card in English football is probably one of the most famous players who's played in the English league.
So Bobby Moore.
No,
it's probably a bit late for Bobby Moore, isn't it?
He's not English.
George
Best.
Yeah.
George Best, who was playing for Man U at the time, and he got his red card for swearing, apparently, was what happened with him.
Not surprised. Foul and abusive language. Not swearing, foul and abusive language.
And so you remember I told you last week, Adam, that the FA decided in 1981 to get rid of red cards, something which I simply didn't actually remember at all. And you'll also remember that I said that IFAB told them in 1987 that they had to reintroduce them to fall in line with everybody else. But my last question was going to be, who was the first player to get a red card following the reintroduction of red cards in 1987? Might be a bit before your time, this.
Well, it was when I was born, so 1987. Can I have a clue? Man U player?
He played for Luton Town.
Oh, God.
And it was a game against Derby County. It was the 15th of August, 1987.
Oh, the 15th of August. That helps.
Yeah, that helps.
Oh,
good. That narrows it down, is it?
Was it like that guy Chopper Harris, or whatever his name was?
Chopper Harris was he 60s or 70s?
I don't know.
It wasn't 1987.
Right, no, Kevin Keegan.
No, it was Mick Hartford.
I've never heard of him.
Was the player.
And I think probably 98% of our listeners have never heard of him.
Well, You're being very ageist by making that remark, Adam. Unless
Mick
you're the
Harford.
demographic of our listeners.
Was he particularly famous, Mick Harford?
He
other
was,
than
yeah,
being the first person to get a red card?
He was pretty well known in his time. Yeah,
Fair
he
enough.
was pretty good player. So anyway, those are all the fun facts. I can't, I've got to save some over for next week if we've got sections still to do.
I was thinking about it, and I think actually it's probably a good idea that we split it up, because overloading with too much information, especially on one particular law, isn't easy. I'd like people to feel free to digest it and really comprehend the law, and so breaking it up is probably a good idea. I've had loads of messages of people being thankful for the podcast and really like enjoying it, whether they're new to refereeing, whether they're old hands at refereeing, like yourself, Edward, and stuff like that. So those messages, they really do keep us cheery. We had a lovely email come in, didn't we? So yeah, if you want to be thankful for it, then please give it a review or just send us a message, because they're always nice to get, and we do like them. And also, don't forget to get your 10% off.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget your 10% off, because that's all in the podcast notes as well, the show notes. But
Yes.
also, I know that we've not been able to cover much of the post bag this week, and we've said before we've got a sort of big post bag, and as we promised, we will endeavour to get through them all, because there will come a point when we sort of run out of laws and we'll want to get a bit more time to post bag. But please do write in. It's lovely to get your questions, but it's also just really lovely to get your messages of support. It's so nice on a sort of cold morning as I'm commuting to work to see a message coming in. We had a really nice email came in this week about somebody telling us their story of how they've got back into refereeing and how they're really loving the podcast and think it's really, really helpful. And like I said, it's really, really, really great to get those messages. So do communicate with us, do give us a 5-star review, and
Keep being awesome.
We'll be back hopefully in about a week's time.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
Neither can I, Adam.
Good.
Anyway, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too, with your sunburnt nose.
And have a lovely week.
I've got to say as well, if you want to see what Ed looks like in a pink Hawaiian shirt, check out his social media.
I thought I looked rather flattering.
I actually think you look rather handsome, Edward.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you have a lovely week, my friend.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Red or Yellow. You're clearly a very fit listener. May I gently remind you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell all your friends. And don't forget to please share it with any colleagues or refereeing groups that you may have. Good luck on the fields out there this week. And if you have any questions, please send them in to us. Voice notes can be sent to redoryellowpod@gmail.com, or you can contact us on social media. It's @redoryellowpod. Have the most wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. Ciao, ciao.